God said, I will heal her. I will heal her. Focus on me. Keep your eyes on me.
Hello, and welcome to Ladies Uplift Circle,
the podcast. Today we're going to hear of Sister Jerrica's testimony. I'm sure many people have heard about this recent miracle, but we're excited to hear it firsthand from Sister Jerrica. So, hi, Sister Jerrica. How are you?
I'm good. Hi. Good to see you guys.
You
Nice to
too.
see you again. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very familiar with each other and have spoken already, about this experience and other things that have happened in your life. But maybe we can start off if you want to give a little introduction to the people watching the podcast if they might not know you.
Yeah, sure. So, Sister Jerrica Huttenberger, formerly Pachuto. So I grew up actually on a Indian reservation. So my parents were missionaries. So my whole life I've been born and raised in the church.
It's great to be able to speak with you and hear your testimony. If you want to share a little bit about your recent miracle.
Yeah, for sure. So, a couple months ago, I um experienced some like where my legs were paralyzed. I went to the doctor and they immediately sent me to the emergency room, and during that time they did MRIs and we found out that my I had demyelination on my spine, and I just like lost all sense of like walking, couldn't move from like the waist down. um
And this
it
was
was
like sudden, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was like uh where it started, my back started out a little bit numb, and then it just continued to progress down my legs to where both of my legs, like, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't even know if I was taking a step, and then it got to where I couldn't even move them anymore.
So, with all that happening and so suddenly, how are you feeling during that time? I would be so worried. And I know you have daughters at home. I have a daughter. I'd be nervous about everything that might happen.
Looking back at it now, Ryan and I are so mind blown of what we went through and what happened than to when we were actually going through this trial. We were, for the most part, we kind of laughed because we were at peace, like we were so happy, and just like no matter what the doctor said, we still like had hope, and our faith was in God, and we're so thankful because this whole time, whenever it first happened, our my in-laws, Ryan's parents, were at conference, a weekend conference in Pennsylvania. So they right away they told they were telling people like, please pray for Jerrica, like, and told them what happened, and that's when they ended up doing offering prayer, and the word of the Lord came forth that I was going to be healed. So right off the bat, hearing that, Ryan and I were very much so like, okay, like God said he's going to heal, like we have to just keep our eyes focused on God, and he said he's going to heal, so that's what's going to happen. And throughout the process, we had so many experiences during the time of just that weekend from conference being told. Another one was given that through the saints, because of the prayers of the saints, she will be healed. So hearing these, being told multiple times that I was going to be healed, we just didn't know when. That our faith and our hope was so great at the time, and God knew we needed it. So that was our mind was just focused on being told that. So
That's amazing. So you said you were in the hospital 22 days. And then even after that, it was a few more days before we'll get to it, but you had your healing. So I just want to point out like how amazing your faith is. Like there was the voice of the Lord saying that you're going to be healed, but as a human, I can only imagine after 3 weeks in the hospital, a few,
You're still
more time
waiting.
in between, you're back from the hospital, you could be like, hey, where's my miracle, right? But you still were like, you still had such strong faith that God was going to do it. And it was just a matter of when, not if,
Yeah.
right?
right.
So
No, that's so true. Yeah, so true. We Those experiences, we actually, to hear the doctor, we had so much opposition from the doctors also, like coming from even Ryan's story, they would tell him like, "This is it. Like, this is your life. Like, we'll send her home a hospital bed. Like, her legs are not coming back." And at that time, to hear this, but we just hung on to those experiences that were told. What we read them every day. Ryan read them every day, and we just kept like, okay, God said, like, you said you're gonna heal. Like, my mind, I always say like, okay, God, you tell me when to jump. Like, you say the words and I'm gonna do it. Like, if or we're in this boat, like, you tell me to step out on faith, like, I'm gonna do it. I was ready every second of every day, no matter what the doctor said, of like just waiting for this thunder, or I'll have like get up or stand up or walk or your heels, just waiting for the words. And that in 22 days, it's a long time, and the time after, but I was just very much, okay, God, I know that your timing is the best timing, and whenever it's meant to be, it will happen.
So you mentioned that there were some experiences that happened in the hospital that kind of kept you going and kept that faith alive. So are there any experiences that stand out that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so we were I was probably about like 4 days in, and think, of course, we're waiting on, okay, like, where's that healing? And we knew people were fasting and praying from many different branches, or our family or friends were fasting and praying. And so, to hear that so many people are fasting and praying, that we're like, okay, maybe tomorrow or maybe the next day. And after our treatment of the 5 extensive days of steroids, they're like, this is not working. We're going to switch to this thing called plasmapheresis. So they're like, this is going to work. You're going to, you 2 days on, a day rest, and then we're going to do this for 5 to 10 days. And they're like, this is going to be like, this is the ticket. Like, this is how you're going to get better. So we're like, okay. They end up starting the treatment on me, and I actually had the worst reaction. I Allergic reactions, a reaction of where we had to stop the treatment mid treatment because my face started to swell. My body completely was paralyzed. Like, I went to move the blanket and I couldn't move the blanket, and I just remember like trying to say like, help me. And the technician is like scrambling because he sees that my whole head is like swelling and my face is sagging. So I'm having these stroke like symptoms. And during this time, again, my eyes are swollen shut, and I'm just praying, like, dear God, please don't let my throat close. Like, please don't let my airway close. Just like praying, like, dear God, help me. Like, be with me. And I could hearing all the commotion going on through this, of like the sheer panic of these techs trying to figure out what is happening and turn off the machine and stuff. And I don't know. I'd like to say it was an angel. I don't know if it was an angel. I don't know if it was a nurse, but mind you, I'm in a hospital bed, and during this time of just I try not to panic, but knowing that something is definitely wrong. There was a nurse, I'm saying nurse because I didn't see her, that I could feel a hand on my shoulder. I had felt a hand on my shoulder, and they were telling me, you're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And at that time, I remember like I had tears like streaming down my face, and I could feel her wiping my tears and telling me, you're going to be okay. Well, when I told Ryan what happened, he was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you're up, there was a wall back there and there was a bed. How can somebody be sitting like right here behind you telling you that you're going to be okay? So that next morning, Ryan had gotten an email from a brother and sister in the church, and she had woken up that night. And remind you, my treatment happened at night. A lot of the things happened at night because the hospital is so busy. And she woke up in the middle of the night, she said, and I was on her heart, and she started to pray for me. And she heard a voice say, Jerrica will be all right. And that was the same night that I had this reaction, and I heard an angel, or I thought a nurse at the time, but telling me that I was going to be all right. So that was amazing. That would happen the same day that so many people were fasting and praying that day for me, and we were all waiting for a miracle. So God again was so good to, like, I hear your call, I hear their call, kind of like telling us like, I'm here, um, just kind of, I know you're going through it, but just keep going through it. I'm not going to leave you. So that was like one of our first big experiences that we had. And after that, again, the symptoms, it got even worse at the time with like my experiences of, I would have tremors from that. They did another MRI and they're like, hey, you have lesions all on your brain. You have lesions all down your spine. Like, they were just in awe of like how bad it was. And I started to lose my sense to be able to talk. I couldn't read my texts anymore. um, I was having a hard time of just, and this is so vulnerable, and I have to say, because it's really hard, because you never want to be judged for like, oh, she's losing her mind. But it's so true, because I have to say, because to give God how amazing and all the glory that he's done through this, I was really not knowing of what was real and what was happening, because of such damage that had happened through this treatment. And I told my dad, like, something's happening, like, I can't read, I can't write, I don't know what's going on. And I started to slur my words, I couldn't get my words out. And him and Ryan prayed, my dad prayed for me, and him and Ryan prayed so hard, that evening for me, that when I closed my eyes, I could see myself in this dark room, like sitting on the floor. And as he was praying, I felt like if somebody opened the curtain or window, and this bright light just shone down on me, and the warmth, I could feel the warmth. And I talk about it, I could still feel like the warmth on my face, and I could feel this light just like, just shine on me. And after that, I had a feeling like this is going to be okay. Like, the peace just flooded my body of, I'm going to be okay. This is going to be okay. And within the next couple of days, my speech started getting better, and the tremors were not as bad. So that was like another experience that I've never, like, I feel like I never experienced anything like that. And that was an experience that I had at the hospital. So
That's amazing. So obviously we know that you've healed, right? Not to spoil the ending for those who don't know it, but we can see you like sitting upright, you're talking so eloquently, we can see that you're healed. But like while that's going on, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, like trying to imagine each, up and down. And I just feel like it rings so true that God was like showing you, I will never leave you or forsake you. Like there may be trials and they may have really low lows, but I'm not going to leave you. And it feels like every time you had, you're down, there was something that he gave you, like the word of the Lord, the message that the saints prayers were going to be the reason you were healed, the angel, that told you you're going to be all right. And now this light, like in your lowest moment, you were saying, you felt like you were crazy, you were going crazy, and that I imagine would be rock bottom.
Yeah.
Right? And God was like, nope, like I'm going to
Still here.
replenish you
right.
with my light and my warmth. So that's amazing.
Definitely. I was like, and that was probably one of the scare, right? To talk to Ryan now too. He definitely, through this whole time, he's been so strong also. And I like, was there a time that maybe like you were a little afraid? And he does say like that was probably one of the hardest, is to see, my girls came and visited me, my two little ones. Kate came every night there to visit, and he said to see that I had a hard time interacting with them, or my words weren't coming out, or I had just, he said that probably was like the first time that he felt crushed, and was really hard, because the doctor's like, this is what it's going to be like, put her in a wheelchair, put her in front of the window, like, this is your life, really, like, just let her go. And in a couple of months, I wouldn't know who I was, I wouldn't know who my daughters were, I wouldn't know anything. I would just be like a vegetable sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
living my life. And that was so for God to be so gracious to us to give us those experiences, like it's amazing. And I feel like that's why like that initial healing didn't happen right in the beginning, because it could have happened right in the beginning, but he had so many amazing um, blessings, and there were so many testimonies of miracles that happened in between all this because of the prayers also, that were people were praying for us and lifting our name up.
And through this all, he was like testing, in a sense, testing your faith, continuing to help you find a way to strengthen your faith. And that was the focus for a good amount of the time. Like you said, he could have healed you. God is capable of doing that. In the instance that you went numb, he could have healed you, but it was a lot more than just healing. It was your testimony. For sure, not only through the church, but I know when we first spoke, you said that it was a testimony to even share with all the nurses that came in and out of your room.
Definitely. We're so thankful for the nurses that we had, because the times when the doctors were very, very much so like, this is science, this is how medicine works, this is how it works. And we had one travel nurse one night that like came in the room, and whenever she came back, she was like, I have to ask you guys, are you people of faith? I walked in this room and I felt something different. And this is not for anything with Ryan and I, again, this is all honor for God, honor, glory to God, because we're like, let us tell you this testimony of what we're going through right now. And she joined right in, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, she was praying with us at the bedside, and we were sharing testimony. And so as much as try not to think about like what we were going through at the time, we just thought like, okay, God, like if I have to sit in this bed, I'm still, if I can, as long as I can speak, as long as I can have a conversation, I'm going to get it out, I'm going to get this testimony out. So it's very much so, in the beginning we had an amazing bond with our nurses of definitely how good God is. So
Yeah, it sounds like your nurses were so amazing. But I'm curious, like, how did you get out of there? Like, what's the next step in the story, I guess?
yeah, so actually my nurse, the nurse that I had, probably gone, I've had him for 4 days by now. So we definitely built a relationship. And the doctor had came in to tell us that my kidneys, my liver's failing. The very next, like he had all these tests and procedures lined up the following day. And he took the nurse out of the room, and when my nurse came back, he was like, you have to get out of here. Like, you have to get out of here. I'm like, I know, like, I need to go home. I need to go home. And we just got this news of like, now my organs are starting to fail. And a couple days prior, Ryan had gotten a text from an apostle of the church saying that they wanted to come. There's a couple people that wanted to come and pray for me, whether in the hospital or whatever was going to happen. And I knew every part of my, like every part of my body, like every fiber of my being knew I needed to go home. I needed to go home. And I told my nurses, like, I need to go home. And he's like, I believe you. I believe you. So I believe my doctor, I want to say the neurologist at the time, like went on lunch or something. And within 15 minutes, he had another doctor on the floor come in and talk to me that he was really good friends with. And she was very kind. And within 15 minutes, I was discharged, and I got to go home. Um, so my nurse like sent was the one who helped to get me to go home.
Okay, so at this point when you're about to go home, you're getting discharged, you were healed or you weren't healed yet? Where were you at in your miracle?
Well, when I went home, I still was not fully healed. No. Ryan had to carry me up and down the stairs. He literally carried me throughout the house. I had a wheelchair that the hospital had sent home. Um, I had a walker. I had like all the things that I needed to get around the house. And but Ryan was like my main source of getting around. He carried me everywhere. So no, I still couldn't walk. I couldn't walk on my own. Yeah, so
I think that it's really important to point out like how severe the case was in the hospital. Like you probably shouldn't have
Have
gone
left.
home, really. Like God handpicked that nurse to advocate for you to go home. You felt like it was right. And then at home, pointing out still that it was still a very severe case, right? Like, I think that's just important to highlight, like, the state that you really were in.
Definitely. Actually, when I got home, I want to say maybe like 3 or 4 hours, maybe about 3 hours after getting home, the hospital actually called the doctor that helped discharge me, actually had called and been like, um, yeah, so you have so much procedures lined up that you probably should come back. And I'm like, no, I'm not coming back. Like, thank you. And like, well, we really need you to go either tonight or tomorrow and at least go to get more blood work done because we didn't realize how bad. Because again, she wasn't my neurologist. She was the first. That was the first time I saw her. So she's like, we need you to get some more blood work because your liver and your kidneys are failing. We need to catch up on it. And I was like, okay, thanks, I'll do that. And I after that I was like, Ryan, like Ryan's like, where do we need to go? Like, no, like we don't need to go anywhere. Like, I'm not going. Like, I'm not going to get my blood done. I'm not going back to the hospital. Like, no, they have and why would I do that? Why would I go back to the doctor? Why would I go to the hospital when they offer me nothing? Like, they're not giving me any hope of just like like just laying in a bed and doing nothing my entire life. And so, like, why would we do that? No, like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until God heals me. So we did have a call to like bring her back and like, sorry, like, I'm home. Like, thank you so much, but I'm not coming back. Multiple times through that, all that hospital stay, every single time there was an experience, every single time God said, I will heal her. I will heal her. Focus on me. Keep your eyes on me. So, like if God is telling you, like, he's going to do it, like, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. So, more so, I feel like I was more excited of like, okay, God, like again, tell me when
When is
I'm
it?
ready to go. Like, you tell me how, like, you say jump, I say how high. Like, I just keep, I'm gonna, that was how our mindset was because the experiences were so strong and so amazing of like God literally telling us what to do, that we just had to be patient. We just had to wait a little bit longer. And patience is hard, but again, we're so grateful for how vocal and how many experiences that were given. Yeah.
So maybe we should jump right into the healing. I know we talked about you being at home. Ryan was having to carry you everywhere. You were still in this severe state. So let's hop back into that part of the story if you don't mind telling us what happens next.
Yeah, definitely. So we had our region conference coming up, and I want to go. I want to go. Which I was so grateful for, again, for all the prayers. And we told the brothers that wanted to come and pray, like, we're home. They're like, we want to come to your house. We feel strong to come to your house because I was like, well, I could come to conference, or, you're more than welcome to come over. And they said, we definitely felt the spirit to come to your house. So I got to the hospital on Sunday, and then that Friday they had were going to be coming to my house. And the the day prior, I knew that they were going to be coming, and I would try to get up and move. I was trying, like, telling everybody, like, let me go, let me try. And I couldn't walk, I couldn't hold myself up. I just kind of scooted on the floor around using my arms. And when the brothers had came, and they had prayed for me, and there was an experience of tongues at that time. And I remember hearing, it was just so powerful. And I remember hearing that I was healed, that I was going to be healed. And right whenever he was done praying, I knew, I said, I have to stand up, I have to stand up. And I was sitting in a chair in my living room. I have to stand up. And I literally just stood up. I stood up, and not even that, like, standing up and holding myself up, like, wasn't even holding myself up, like, there was just a straight stand up. And I walked and hugged them. I like hugged my girls, and they were, they got to witness this. And I even like walked them out the door without holding on to anything. And so that was And I said, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you at conference. I'll be there for Ladies Circle. We had a Ladies Circle that morning, and I said, I'm going to be there. I'll be there. And from that moment on, I was walking. I was walking. I went to conference that weekend. And it was such an amazing experience to be able to like greet people and thank people for all their prayers and for their support for my family. Ryan and I, we realized that weekend of like how much more it was because we had so many people tell us, my neighbors were praying for you, my coworkers were praying, um, my daughter and son-in-law were praying, and like people that didn't even know us, people that had no idea who we were, that were praying for us in this situation. I'm like, wow, Ryan, like this was just like not even just like this amazing experience for like our church. Like this was an experience for so many people have heard this, heard about our, what we were going through, and so many prayers from people that had no idea who we were, of stopping in a restaurant, and there is somebody that goes to church, and they are a waitress, and they were asked that day, from like a local pastor, I'm like, hey, like, can we pray for you for something, is there something? And she, so sweet, brought up my name, and this local pastor starts praying for me in a restaurant. And I'm like, Ryan, this was so much more of just, like of amazing people praying for us. I could never imagine of like, how it just shows how we never know what's God's way is always the best way. We never know. We think like this is just a great thing for our church or whatever. And no, it was so much more that we couldn't even fathom of how God was going to use this. So, yeah.
So now that the miracle has happened, how have you been feeling with your faith? How has your faith continued to grow since your experience?
So even whenever we were at camp, it's so amazingly, I'm healed and I'm doing great. And I was in my seminar, and Brother Scott was one of my seminar teachers, Scott Griffith, and he brought up a little bit of the story of like, thank God that she's here and that she can walk, because some people didn't hear about it yet. And when I was in class, he was talking, he said, stand up, and he told me to walk to him. And I was walking to him in class. So he said, like, come and walk to me. Like she could, and he was saying like she couldn't walk, like she was paralyzed. And whenever I was walking across the room, a brother in the room stood up and spoke in the word of the Lord. And it was so strong and so loud and so powerful. And it said, behold my power, behold my power, behold my power, my people, thus saith the Lord. As I was walking to Scott, like it just like thunder was just the word of the Lord speaking of behold his power. And I like, oh my gosh, of course, like I'm crying like a mess because it's so like amazing. And so that was like one experience that happened. And then whenever Ryan and I were telling our testimony, they asked us to tell our testimony at camp. And whenever we were telling our testimony, a brother, it was like they had these like balconies, and he was up on the balcony, and his brother had spoken in the word of the Lord. And as we were talking, he stood up. And again, we're in this room of 500 people, and it was so loud, like thunder again. And his was, thus saith the Lord, thus saith the Lord, behold and witness, my child, I have healed. There is nothing I cannot do. I have parted the sea. I have crumbled the wall. Call on me, call upon me. There is nothing I cannot do, thus saith the Lord. And that's as we were giving our testimony. And I'm still blown away. Like, even my daughter, Kate, she was like, whenever we were driving to church and we were kind of like talking about it, and I was just like, oh, like, oh, maybe I kind of like a little bit of like, I hope I can go to church and I'm going to make it through the day. And, and she was like, this is just so crazy. The story is just so crazy. And we're like, yes, it is, because there's no explanation of it, like, except for God. Like, everything points back to God. There's no science, there's no medical, nobody can, like, this is just so perfect of how it worked out, that all like it's only God. There's only God. It's only like there's just no way. There's no way. There's no medicine. Which, fact, to this day, I have to say, like, I never took. They sent me home with tons of prescription medicine, like bottles. I didn't even know there's bottles like this big. never took one thing. And it was said that like, you have to say this for the rest of her life, blah, blah, blah. Never took one thing. So that's how crazy, like, you can't say, oh, it was the medicine. Oh, it was the plasma. Oh, it was the steroids. Like, every single thing failed, and God is always the victor and he never fails. And so like he just like signed it off of like, I'm gonna win every single time, and that's where we put our trust into. So
So, like you said, you're sharing that not just the saints of the church were praying for you, but so many others. It extended. It was like a ripple effect of who was praying for you. And I know from being from the church now, we hear of miracles, and it adds to our faith. But it's not many times that maybe people not from our church hear those miracles. But it's just great confirmation that God is the same as He was yesterday, today, and He will be the same tomorrow. Like when we first talked, trying to talk about this podcast, you mentioned that your devotional that day was Jesus healing the paralyzed man, and that's just confirmation for us that one, he's in the matter of what we're doing right now, but also even greater confirmation that you're no different than that story in the Bible. He's still working the same. And kind of going back to your faith growing, Mark 2 verse 5 says, when Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, son, thy sins be forgiven thee. And he was focused on your faith, and that was what's going to fuel you and help you get through that. Like you said, your faith was kind of being tested through it all. You weren't healed in a day, it took some time. It continues later on, verse 11, I say unto thee, arise and take up thy bed and go thy way into thine house. And immediately he arose, took up the bed, and went forth before them all, insomuch that they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, we never saw it on this fashion. And same like this, you're sharing your testimony, you're glorifying God. It's spreading to not only the saints of the church, but God willing, it's going to spread even further. Those friends that prayed for you are hopefully hearing now that you are healed, and just emphasizes your faith, emphasizes the faith of your loved ones, emphasizes that God's still the same and still working till this day.
I think when we were talking about this podcast, we were so excited to like share with the world and keep record of the continuing miracles that happen, because a lot of people can look back at the Bible and say, oh, that's a story that happened, or like, sure, maybe it happened, but like that doesn't happen today. God doesn't keep doing that. And it's like literal proof. We could have copied and pasted your story
With that,
into this text, right? Like, just so amazing that it happened, and like thankful to God that he's still showing us his power, that he's still the same today, and that we get to literally speak to you today about it, right?
definitely. It's so, I know it's so crazy. Like, I'm still in awe to even be able to share this testimony, because one, this shows like how important it is, like, even though Jesus he healed the paralyzed man, and that happened so many years ago, and it's like that's just a story, and like you said, a story in the Bible that doesn't happen today. And to be like, no, like, these, he gave us these stories so that we have the faith so that it can happen today. And with him healing the paralyzed man, makes me think of the experience that we had, that happened at conference, whenever there was the word of the Lord that spoke, that said that she will be healed, because of the prayers of the saints. Well, it's like exactly the same as this story in the Bible, that he was healed because his friends had the faith to lower him down the roof, that God would heal him. And whenever he said to, take up your bed and walk, I was exactly like how I felt whenever they prayed for me at my house and I heard that I was healed. It was like, stand up, like, you have to stand up, like, get up and go. And that was exact feeling, if I could just put it into any words of what I was feeling at that time, was pick up your bed, like, take up your bed and walk. And that's how I felt. And so it definitely, resonates, and of like this story coming to life again, and how good God is. And that's why we have these books, and that's why we have these stories, is to remember how good God is, and that he can do it 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or he can do it, today. And so definitely helps keep your faith stronger.
Yeah. I do want to point out too, you're talking about his friends had the faith to bring him down from the roof. Like, that's an action. you had the faith to leave the hospital when all the medicine and doctors and nurses told you that is not what you should be doing right now, right? So, like, how do we show our faith in the day to day? Like, what action are we taking that, like, is literally stepping out on faith, I guess, and trusting that God's going to take care of that situation?
I think like building that relationship, I like through my life, I can like look back of like, I would always would like to say I had a relationship with God or my relationship with God is good. And I really never knew of like this type of relationship that I have now with him. And it's not just because I was healed, not because, but trials of that happened in life where we had to put we were backed up to a wall and we literally had nowhere to go and all we could do is put our faith into God. Like even prior to this happening, actually the day leading up to the same day that I went into the hospital, a month and a half prior to that, we had lost our insurance, our medical insurance, and my daughter Siona, she's 7 now, was diagnosed with diabetes about a year and a half ago, and losing our medical insurance at the time, we lost like all her, we couldn't get any more supplies for her. That meant insulin, that meant all her um like Dexcom and pods and all these things that she needs literally to stay alive every single day. It's not just like, oh, you didn't get a prescription. Like every second of the day her life is on the line. Every minute of the day is her life is in our hands. And to hear that we're not getting this anymore. And Ryan and I, we did everything. We called every insurance. We tried everything and it just was not happening. So at that point, we're like, when your child or your family member is, like when you see this, when this is happening, it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Like, I'm not okay with, I can't just give up. And, we were very strong and like, okay, God, like you promised again, our motto, this whole thing was like, God never said it was going to be easy, but he said he would never leave nor forsake us. And we thought in our minds, we thought, well, maybe that day, Ryan, we're going to wake up and then, somebody's going to offer this amazing thing and we're going to get insurance and everything's going to be okay. Like, God, you're good. That's just a way of, let me just help you of like thinking that we know like this is going to be the best way. And Ryan and I could never imagine in our wildest dreams of what he had in store, because the Sunday prior, when we knew, we were like counting down the days, like to when we knew that she was not going to have anything left. And we were at church that Sunday and we got prayed for as a family. And our branch was so just, we love our branch again, so amazing, because at that time it happened so fast. Our branch was really the ones that knew at the time. And we had a sweet sister ask like, well, what are you going to do? What's next? Like, what can we do to help? And every part of me, I feel it from my head to my toes, I just said, you know what, I don't know, but we're just going to keep on reaching in and pulling out the insulin. We're going to keep on reaching in and we're just going to keep pulling out the medical supplies. And actually this door right here behind me is like her diabetes drawer full of everything that she needs for keep her life, to keep her alive. And that night when we got back from church, I told Ryan and Kite, because they're the ones who help caregive with her. I said, we're not going to count the supplies. Do not count the supplies. Do not count anything that's in that drawer. Do not count the insulin. Do not count a single thing. But whenever you reach in, you reach in knowing that you're going to pull it out. Reach in, and so we prayed as a family, even Siona and Sissany, my youngest, all of us, we prayed together. We prayed for Siona. We prayed that God would, whatever whatever was going to happen, that it was going to be his will. So the very next day we didn't have anything, and we went to the drawer, and for a month and a half, remind you, you only get what you need for the prior month, and a month and a half we had endless supplies. We had the insulin, we had the Dexcoms, we had the Omnipods, which is her insulin pump. We never ran out of anything. And whenever I went to get all her stuff finally refilled a month and a half later was the same night that I ended up going to the hospital because I couldn't walk. So a month and a half, like God was our pharmacist, and we had this endless supply of everything that we needed for her. And we are just so grateful because I think of the woman, I tell Siona the story too, but I think of the widow of whenever Elijah asked for her last piece of bread, and she's, this is all I have. This, I was, me and my son were going to eat this, and then we were going to perish. And she gave her last piece of bread to him. And whenever she knocked over, she had, through the famine, she had enough food to supply this entire famine. And that was the story that stuck out to me because, you know, like I felt like, God, this is all I have. This is the last piece of bread that I have. You know, you have to make it through, we have to make it through this famine that we're going to have with these diabetes supplies. And he did. So we were coming off of that. And so when the doctor told us, like, you can't walk, we're like, okay, whatever, because you have no idea what just happened though, you know, prior to this. Like, me walking, that's not a big deal because we just had this drawer be full of supplies that would never should have been there. So that's where we came off of this high faith of knowing that whenever God says he's going to do is because he just did that for us, literally up to the night that I went into the hospital.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
I think it's important to point out again the action that you were taking with that faith. Like, you could have said, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna sit back, like, God will figure it out, right? But you physically had to reach into a drawer with that faith, like, knowing something was gonna come out.
It's, and I'm going to piggyback off of that because prior to going to camp out, I had to get, like, we have to pack all her stuff. Like, I'm bringing a suitcase just full of stuff for her. So this was going up to camp out, and I'm putting all her supplies together, and I'm just like pulling out all these things that she needs. And I said, Ryan, like, count these supplies that I have. And so he did count them before we went to camp out because we had to have enough to last us in case anything happened. You'd take like a month's worth of supplies with you just in case. And when we counted, we had a month and a half abundance of supplies more. So we went with a month and a half with nothing, but whenever we did need to count them and going away on a trip, we had a month and a half extra. No, we never, like, they didn't send us extra at any time. Like, how amazing is that? It wasn't just like a month extra, a couple weeks extra, a day extra. 1 month that we did not have anything, we had an abundance more. So I have more that I could even possibly steal to this day, which is absolutely only God, only God.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I feel like that's strengthening my faith. Like, I've never had, you know, such a huge trial like that to where I really have to trust in God that He's going to make the impossible happen. But I really feel like so energized right now, like seeing it happen to you twice, you know, just it gives me strength to know that when that time comes for me, because life is not going to be perfect, like, God will not leave or forsake me, you know.
I mean, I can say it's hard, but just remember those stories. Remember those stories. Remember this. He gave us this Bible for a reason. He gave us the Bible for a reason. And you see, you know, you see it re-happening, and just that's the only thing I can. They just hold on to it. That's like that's all that we did. We didn't. There is no, you know, magic potion. There's no nothing, you know, that's, it's just so simple of just trusting God. And sometimes it does take where you're down to the last minute and you don't understand, but to just like surrender and to submit it all to God in whatever his way is the best way. And that's all I can say. Like, that's all that we did.
And for your daughters too, like even that you said you told when you came back from church that Sunday, you told Ryan and your oldest daughter Kate, like, don't count them. We're just gonna put our hand in and trust that God is there for us and isn't gonna forsake us in this moment.
That's true, because Kate's 17 years
Yeah,
old.
and she
Like,
could have been like, I'm gonna count them, like,
yeah.
but
I
they
know.
also trusted your word as well. That, like, okay, this is where our faith lies, and we're gonna trust that. And even through this whole thing, like you said, like it's fueling our faith to hear. Even if we've heard miracles before, this just continues to fuel our faith that it's happening still. And I can guarantee that it fuels your daughters, like they're truly experiencing it firsthand. I'm sure that even you have an older daughter, but you have little ones too that are just fueling it.
Yeah.
And I know you said like one of your daughters like loves to pray and tells people to
Yeah, Siona, like they're yeah, Siona is definitely well, like every Sunday she's up there getting prayed for. It was like anybody need prayer? Like she in the very beginning she asked for a healing and like this is a healing that we're waiting for and this is something that right at this moment that we're going through a trial of you come off these amazing healings for myself and our endless supply of diabetes supplies. And to know that God is so good to be able to do these things and to have all this faith and our greatest desire is for like our daughter to be healed of this horrible disease and I think and she knows that from the day one she would go up and get prayed for and they asked her like what do you want to get prayed for and she's like that Jesus would heal me from diabetes. So from then on, like from the mouths of babes, like we're gonna pray for that and whether it's in God's plan and we don't whenever in his timing is the best. And I was telling Ryan I feel like a little selfish because we want this healing so bad for her, but we wouldn't have he could have healed her in the very beginning, but we wouldn't have had this amazing miracle to um I did tell this story at camp out and how many people were like how much it grew their faith and I felt so selfish of wanting this healing for to make it easier on our life and how many people it could help next time to keep on reaching and having that faith. And so I'm just so grateful that even through this trial that I'm still realizing be patient on God and so that's something that we struggle with right now, just like you can do these amazing things and we want this healing for her and it's just not the time right now or whatever the time is then it will happen.
Yeah, well, we were talking earlier about how, like, God's not a genie, right? Like, just because we ask and wish for a healing doesn't mean He's always going to give it to you right away. And that's not to say that He can't do it, because we know that He can. It's just we don't know why or why not, right? So I think having faith is both having faith in the situation that God is going to heal you, and then also having faith that in the chance that He's saying no to the healing right now, He's not leaving or forsaking me. Like, fully believing that He is with me even in this trial.
Yeah, and believing whatever his plan is
Yeah.
the proper plan and is what's best for the end result of whatever God has in store for all of us.
And that we continue like to praise him whether which way it goes. And I was asked that prior, like would you praise God um if you were healed, and like for forever I will always praise him, and like would you still praise him even if you weren't healed at this time? And sure enough, like I will always praise him.
Yeah, so like a good amount of your faith is testing to not be afraid of what's to come. Like you said, you were healed, but maybe your daughter isn't fully healed. You had the miracles of you had endless supply, and even now you said you guys have a month and a half overabundance of supplies, but not necessarily she's not necessarily fully healed from diabetes. We still need those supplies for her, and but your faith continues to grow. That it's not just faith that when things are going good, you have faith in the good and the bad. We've mentioned this verse when we were talking to each other and kind of going over what we discussed in in this podcast. In Deuteronomy 31:6, it says, "Be strong and of a good courage, fear not, nor be afraid of them. The Lord thy God, he it is that doth go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee." Which is what you've been reiterating this whole time, that he wasn't going to forsake you guys this whole time. And you guys were strong through it all. You guys had courage, and you knew in the end what it wasn't if he was going to heal you, it was when.
But it's hearing those like how you guys have said like it strengthens your faith. And I've had so many so many other testimonies from other brothers and sisters or from the time that I was like I always say I always hold Lady Circle so dear to my heart. To hear those ladies' stories and their testimonies, I think about them so often in my trials because they made it through and I are such strong women of faith. And to hear other testimonies from other women in Ladies Circle at a time like I was so much younger then, but I pulled them up and needed them now of how strong they were, what they went through, because they definitely strengthen your faith in the time of trials when you need it.
Well, I know exactly what you mean, having grown up in the church and been in these, ladies circle meetings since I was young. And I just want to thank God that now you're one of those women that is telling your story, the strong women of faith. And I'm just really thankful that we got to spend this time with you and speak about these miracles and the things that you've learned and that we're currently learning. So just thankful and praising God today. So thank you for your time, Jerrica. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank God. So excited to be here. And thank you so much for wanting to share this miracle. Because, again, it's not just Ryan and I's miracle, it's all of our miracles. It's your miracle. And, I take it very serious with everyone who's prayed. I want to say thank you, whether if I met you or if I haven't met you yet. I'm just so grateful and so thankful forever for lifting up our name. God bless.